Hello my friends, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In this episode, there's 4 stories. The first story involves toilet paper, a house, and a destroyed car. The second story is a sleazy airport worker who tries to swindle someone with threats of jail time. The third story is some school drama that ruins a few years of someone's life. And the last story is marriage for all the wrong reasons. I hope you stay for all these stories today, and subscribe for future videos. This story's titled, Don't TP My Parents' House. This took place over a decade ago, but after discovering this gem of a subreddit, I needed to share. Growing up, my friends were all about TPing houses. This involves throwing toilet paper over the house, bushes, trees, etc. Although we thought this was fun, even at the age of 16, we knew there were limitations as how often you should do this because even though the joke is on the friend, the parents are the ones dealing with the mess. So we had a rule. One person can get TP'd once a summer, no exceptions. If you were caught, you were required to help pick it up. That being said, one friend didn't respect the rule. For one entire summer, my parents' house was TP'd literally every weekend without fail. I didn't know who was doing it or who to trust until I came home late one night to see my buddy's brother, we'll call him BB, driving off in his car and flipping me the bird. After calling him out on it, he openly and happily admitted that he was the culprit of the summer's mystery TP asshole. BB didn't like me, and I didn't like him. He had one thing he loved more than anything. His obsession was his red 1998 Ford SVT Cobra Mustang. This car was his baby, and his obsession. If he wasn't busy degrading someone's existence, he was in the garage spending his parents' money on the car. When he admitted to pounding my house with TP, he was happy to announce that he was doing it to my best friend's house too. We'll call him BFF. BFF and I ended up telling our parents about it. When my dad found out, he handed me his Costco card, and BFF's dad handed him a $100 bill and said, "Do what needs to be done." So we bought 10 pounds of flour, 2 Costco-sized bags of toilet paper, and a thing called catfish sewer bait, the most rancid-smelling substance in the world. 100% honest, I'd rather eat a spoonful of shit than eat a spoonful of that. One afternoon, I ended up going to BB's house to hang with his brother. Once I was alone, I snagged a pair of keys to his brother's car, since they hung them on the inside of the door. We snuck back to his house that night, and here's what we did. At least 4 pounds of flour was poured into the air vents of his car. The sewer bait was dumped all over the seats and also poured into the air vents of his car. The smell was enough to make my buddy puke. We TP'd the shit out of his house. I mean everywhere. The house, the back garage, the pond out front, the trees surrounding their house, and the trees in the yard. That night, it rained, and the toilet paper became paste. As for the car, my buddy told me that his brother sold it after bringing it to the dealership multiple times to get it fixed. He sold the car for half of its worth and was forced to drive his grandma's Buick. This story's titled, Immigration Lady Wanted to Swindle My Boyfriend for a couple of bucks, Ended up losing her job. In 2013, my boyfriend moved to the Philippines in order to study nursing. He ended up going to the university in my province. We met, became friends, and started dating. By 2015, I was a recent graduate, but he failed one course which prompted him to move back to the US. It was heartbreaking, but we knew it was for the best. His mom had booked a ticket for him 3 months prior his birthday for a cheaper flight. The day rolled in, and I told him to contact me if he gets into any sort of trouble. We said our goodbyes and kissed one last time because we wouldn't be able to see each other in person for a really long time. 2 hours passed, and I see his text saying that he was in a pickle. I called him and asked what's wrong. He explained to me that the lady in immigration, whom we'll refer to as Lady, wouldn't give him back his papers because he overstayed. I asked if she took all of his documents, and he responded that she did, his passports, school documents, etc. I asked him what she wanted and how they'll resolve this, and my blood boiled when I heard. She wants me to pay a fee of 5,000 Philippine pesos if I want my papers back, or face jail time. 100 Philippine pesos is $100 US at the time. Lady wanted to swindle my boyfriend. This was very common in these countries, and my boyfriend had to be the poor victim in her scheme. I was stressing out because his flight was in 3 hours and she was making things extremely difficult. One fun fact about my boyfriend is that his dad used to work for that airport. He worked there for a long time and is really good friends with some of the staff. I called his mom and told her what happened. Of course, she was as livid as I was and told her husband about her son's predicament. His dad called one of the aforementioned staff buddies and requested on assisting my boyfriend. While this transpired, the lady was still trying to persuade my boyfriend to pay the fine rather than facing jail time. Boyfriend already knew about our plans on helping him, so he refused and said he's fine. A few minutes later, the head of immigration office came out and instructed her to bring boyfriend to their office. She was surprised, but complied. The lady looked smug, probably thinking that boyfriend was some sort of a criminal, and she'd won the jackpot or something. Suddenly, the door opened and a stream of managers, supervisors, and the head of different departments in the airport entered the room and greeted boyfriend warmly, remarked on how grown up he was, and asked if he remembers them, etc. The head honcho of immigration, aka lady's boss, entered the room and told a story on how he would babysit boyfriend when he was a little boy. At this point, you can imagine her freaking the hell out. My boyfriend missed his original flight, but was able to take back his papers and documents and fly out the same day. A week passed, and his dad told me that lady was fired immediately for extortion. The lady's no longer viable to apply for any government jobs. This one's titled, "We'll Never See Each Other Again. Think Again." I was bullied relentlessly from the 3rd to 7th grade by multiple people in my class or upper grades. After I graduated 8th grade, I received a Facebook message from Andy, a boy who'd been bullying me and harassing me from the very beginning of it all. I would post the exact message, but it was extremely vulgar and long. He ended it by saying that since we would never see each other again, he could put it all out in the open about how much of an idiotic, ugly, and loser I was. Of course, he used a more colorful dictionary with those words, but you get the idea. However, there was one problem. My parents owned a large wood chipper. Andy's father owned a tree cutting business and would often rent it from them for much larger jobs. During the summer, I noticed him walk in and started talking to my uncle, and I realized the golden opportunity I'd been given. I loaded Facebook on my laptop and bring the message up. I then approach his dad and tell him, "Your son sent this message to me a few days after graduating, and I think it's really important you read it." He raised an eyebrow at first, but looked at my laptop. As he read, I could visibly see his face turn blood red, and his hands shook as he gripped the sides of my laptop harder and harder. I think he had to reread the entire thing over again just to make sure what he was reading, and even click the profile to make sure it had indeed been his son who sent it. Finally, he gave my computer back and told me he was so sorry for his son's behavior and language, and that he would most certainly be dealing with Andy the moment he got home. It took 2 months for me to hear about the fallout. Andy's older and way nicer brother was friends with my sister, who told her, and then she told me. Andy was grounded for an entire summer, fall, and winter break. His parents excluded him from their annual summer camping trip, held him back from getting his driver's license for a full year, took away all his games and computer, and instead of going with his dad and brother on their hunting trips, he would be sent to their grandparents' house to help clean. I ruined his life for a good 2 to 3 years and destroyed the relationship he had with his father and mother. Probably not forever, but they certainly no longer saw him as their well-behaved youngest child. It was so satisfying. This story's titled, "Wanna cheat on me? Fine, I'll play musical chairs. Forever." This is about my former boss at a pretty big grocery chain. So Dave was a pretty average guy. 40-some years old, graduated high school, married his high school sweetheart, and got a stalker job at the grocery store, and worked his way up to store manager. I worked at his store for 8 months, and he was a great boss. Everything got weird in month 9 when he was suddenly fired, and the very next month, he came back as a produce manager. Then the produce manager, Bob, suddenly became the store manager. I was stalking with Dave one night and asked him what the fuck was going on, so he told me. It turns out Dave's high school sweetheart wasn't so sweet. She married him because he was a 6'7" star of the basketball team, and she thought he was gonna play in the NBA. When he chose a small, quiet town life instead, she never forgave him for it, nor did her well-to-do parents. She even cheated on him with guys that worked beneath him in the stores he managed. He told me he had to change stores 5 or 6 times over the years, but had stayed with her for the kids. She threatened to take them away, and he didn't want them to suffer or for him to be known as another deadbeat guy to everyone in the community. So, he played the long game. He was a good father to the kids. When his wife's parents died, he used the big inheritance to pay for all 3 of the kids to go to really good private schools and top-tier colleges, with the rest set up in a trust. He lived frugally, got an accountant to manage his savings. At the youngest kid's high school graduation, he served his wife divorce papers and walked away. She can't get alimony because he needs to be gainfully employed for 12 consecutive months before they can take anything. So every 10 to 11 months, he gets fired and rehired at a different position with the same pay. The inheritance is gone because he spent it all on the kids, and his savings is in an offshore account so she can't touch it. She got the house but has never worked in her entire life, her looks have faded, and she has no money in the bank. Last he heard, she had to sell the house to move in with her sister. I went into the store when I was back home, and Dave was still there and still getting fired. I hope you guys enjoyed the stories in this episode. If you enjoyed it and aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And I'll see you guys in the next one.